Well, it is Wednesday, and that means it's time to talk to our financial expert here, Jeff Ivory. Now, Jeff, big topic this week is the storm. I'm going to call it of the century, Hurricane Sandy. A lot of damage. We're talking about $20 billion in damage. That's Forbes magazine is estimating. What does this mean for the economy?
Well, in the short run, obviously, the stock market's been shut down for a couple of days. It reopens today, surprisingly, to what appears to be an up day. We'll have to see what that looks like, but that's what the futures are pointing at. It's going to take months to recover. Frankly, it's a long time as you go through a process of actually assessing the total damage and going through and allowing enough workers to get in spots. You know, you can have a tremendous amount of damage and not even be able to get to it for a couple of weeks until you clean up what's on the outside. So there's a lot of damage, and from the reports, it's pretty significant. So, you know, obviously our thoughts go out to the folks that are living on the East Coast that are dealing with these issues today.
Now, what if something like that was to happen, something devastating was to happen here in Michigan?
You know, I don't think you lived here at the time, but it was roughly 10 years ago. The entire power grid was out in Michigan, and those of us that lived here, we remember there were, you know, in many cases, days and up to a week where people were out of power. I specifically remember it because it was actually during my wife's wedding shower, so it was a very odd time to not have power. The emergency needs at that time are the same, whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, you know, middle America. You need to have some basic essentials, food on hand, especially if you have kids. You can't run out last minute and get milk, it's gone. You know, grocery stores only usually typically carry a day to 2 days worth of inventory in some of those critical areas, so you have to be, you know, on it. When the financial markets are shut down, if the power grid's shut down, you can't use credit cards. You can't use, you know, your ATM machine. You have to actually have access to some cash, and I recommend people keep at least some cash in their homes, some flexibility there. And then for those people that have lawnmowers, garages, houses, it's a little easier to keep a little gasoline on hand, and whether you have it for the generator or whatnot. In fact, speaking of that, Randy, great report. Everybody, go buy a little gas today. It's possible with these major storms that we could have some hiccups, and it wouldn't be a bad idea, since they're so cheap, to go pick up a little bit extra, maybe have the fuel topped off in the car.
Now, let me just kind of briefly touch about maybe insurance, for example, kind of more of a preventative measure. Do you need flood insurance? Should you kind of look at these things ahead of time? You know, does insurance cover acts of God? Would this be considered as such? Well,
yes and no. And I think when you look at insurance, well, let's be frank. You need to read the fine print. Insurance policies, insurance providers have been extremely good over the years at knowing what they're going to protect and not protect. And here in Michigan, getting flood insurance oftentimes only covers, you know, $5,000. Michigan's unique with the number of basements we have in Michigan. It's unique given the world. So just read your policy and be careful.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff, for stopping by and giving us your great advice.